Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Treestands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. So glad to have you along with us as we continue this journey that we've been on for so many years now. So many years you've heard my voice or seen my images on TV and my voice and such. The old Outdoor Magazine television show, now the Outdoor Magazine radio show. And the common theme throughout this entire adventure has been the outdoors, the great outdoors, primarily here in the great state of Michigan, and hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping and promotion of getting outdoors, getting out of the office, getting out of the shop, getting out of the house, getting off the couch, getting away from the electronic devices, although we do find ourselves these days when we're in the outdoors relying on those electronic gadgets more and more, don't we? I mean, you've got the Onyx app to show you where you are, as far as people's property and state land to make sure you're not trespassing and such. You've got these precision trolling app to let you know how deep your lures are running. You've got cell cameras. No longer is just a trail camera good enough. There's cell cameras, meaning they're constantly sending us pictures to our phones, which during the heart of the hunting season is pretty cool and also drives us crazy, doesn't it? So we can never really get away from technology, but I do like to encourage people to get outdoors. Although I do have to admit, the last couple of days, as we're sitting here in the studio, the last couple of days, I've tried my best to avoid being outdoors. That frigid, cold, bitter spell that we had here across the state. Now, as I'm in the studio right now, it's warmed up and it's nice and it's like 34 degrees, although the forecast does call for colder temps again over the weekend. I've got to admit, I'm kind of a sissy when it comes to the wintertime now. I'm definitely not tough enough to live in the UP. My Yooper friends, my hat's off. Well, my hat doesn't come off much anymore when I'm outside. But I shave my head. My hat stays on all the time to keep me warm. But much respect to my friends in the UP. Because you're tough. You got to be tough to live in the UP, especially in the wintertime. When I was a kid growing up, I loved the cold. I loved the snow. And back then, we had real winters. And I lived on the west side of the state, so I was over in that snow belt. And I loved it. And the old guys would say, hey, as you get older, you're not going to like it that much. I thought, you're crazy. You're old. You're crazy. What do you know? And now that I'm old, I realized, yeah, they were pretty much right. Pretty much right. What are your choices, though? You can either hunker down in your house and not come out till it gets warm, or you can embrace wintertime, right? I mean, it's what, 2 months, 4 months, depending on where you live, of cold and snow, and you can either tolerate it, avoid it, or embrace it. And I honestly, I can't say that I embrace it anymore. I tolerate it. What are the options? Go to Florida for the wintertime? That's not for me. I know a lot of people who do, and in some days I'm kind of jealous and envious of them. But there's so much to do in the wintertime. And man, we've got ice now. You might not have liked the bitter temperatures, but it did make ice across the state. Pretty good ice. And I'm hearing some pretty good reports. What do they say about first ice being some of the best ice? Just if you're in the southern part of the state and on one of those bodies of water famous for stranding anglers, or if you're on a river that's got current underneath it, just just keep that in mind. I'm not one of those people who's afraid of the ice. I'm not one of those people who says, oh, the ice is never safe, like the Coast Guard did years and years ago. Fortunately, they changed their perspective on that. But if you're not going to be, if you still love the outdoors and you're not going to be outdoors, at least this time of year, we've got some of the outdoor shows. The Ultimate Fishing Show last weekend in Novi. I understand I didn't make it down. I had planned to. I didn't make it down. I understand the crowds were kind of slow. I guess the weekend picked up, but Thursday, Friday, pretty slow. And I guess that's to be expected. The ATA show, depending on who you talk to, the crowds were either down slightly or absolutely abysmal. But that's the world we live in these days, right? This whole pandemic situation has changed everything. We are going to forge ahead. Forge ahead. And short of a government shutdown and a mandate that we can't do it, a couple of events coming up in my world. One of them will be my big, my church's big Trinity Monitor Wild Game Dinner and Auction. That's Saturday, March 5th. We had to take a couple of years off for that. I'm not sure I even know how to do a live auction anymore. It's been a while since I've done them. But we've got some good prizes to give away. As you're listening to the show, tickets are not quite on sale yet. I will let you know when they do become available and where you can get them. And then also coming up, the first Wednesday in March, it's our plan at this point to do a Wednesday night live at the Lumberjack Restaurant, the Forward Corporation Lumberjack Restaurant in West Branch. And we will do those every quarter. We'll do one in first Wednesday in March, June, September, and December. And you, as an Outdoor Magazine listener, will get first crack at making reservations for that. I'll let you know when that becomes available. What else is going on? They still have not drawn my name for the Pure Michigan hunt. It's going to happen. I think sometime in the next week or so that they're going to draw those names. I did win, as I told you last week, I did win the Pure Michigan hunt, and you can congratulate me. I'll accept those congratulations. Now, don't be confused. They haven't drawn it yet, and I have no inside track, but I just, deep in my gut, I know that I did win the Pure Michigan hunt this year. Maybe with some help from my friend Charlie Rude. We'll see. We'll see how it all works out. And I'm joking, because if I did win, it would look really bad, right? I'm also dreaming of some out-of-state adventures. You know I love the great state of Michigan. You know I would just as soon hunt and fish here as much as possible, but it is nice to get out once in a while. And I'm thinking of a couple things right now. My buddy Ross Elliott's heading back up to White River, Ontario, Canada, on a wolf hunt if that border stays open. Chris Durson of Rapid River Knives, rapidriverknifeworks.com, just sent me a picture last night, in fact, of, I don't know where he is. He must be, Colorado, Wyoming, obviously Arizona, someplace out west where they hunt mountain lions. He's got a huge grin on his face, and he's got his hands around a huge mountain lion that he's holding in his grasp. How cool would that be? So it's nice to get out. And I'm just finally starting to edit my bear hunt from White River from last August with Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters. Why it took me so long to get to it, I don't know, except for that fishing and hunting and work and life got in the way. Well, now things have slowed down and I can get to work on that. I will post that on my YouTube channel. I'll put it on Facebook, and I'll put it on all the social media outlets. I think it's going to turn out. Pretty well. I'm actually. It's fun for me at this point to sit down and edit video again. I was at the point. I'll be honest with you. I was at the point where I had started to resent it. There wasn't a lot of joy, or even, can I say, creativity involved in it. During the last couple of years that I had the TV show, it had become a grind. It had become something that I had to do. It had become something that I needed to continue to produce, even if I wasn't quite happy with how the segments or the story or the shows turned out. It didn't matter. I had to crank those things out week after week after week. But now that there's really no timetable on it and I'm not forced to do it, I do post a lot of short video segments, vignettes, snippets on social media, but that's a whole different ballgame. I mean, you can point your phone at yourself, blather on for 15 or 20 seconds and post it. That's nothing. It's easy. But the concept of taking, several different sources of video, including drone video, including trail camera video, including my cell phone video, my professional camera video, and melding those all together, editing those all together into a video story is fun now because I don't have to do it all the time and I can do it on my schedule. So it is fun. After all these years, it's still fun, and I'm blessed to be able to say that. What else? Turkey season coming up. Very excited about that. I know it. You're saying, Avery, it's not till April. I know, but I'm excited about it. Give me that, will you? Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show after the break, Bob Ransom of Primal Treestands, then Tom Campbell of Woods-n-Waternews. And hour number 2, Lieutenant Jason Wicklund of the DNR talks about the process of becoming a conservation officer. Nick Green of MUCC checks in, then this week's Ask Avery segment. And in hour number 3, a Michigan charter captain who spends his summers in warm weather, Lance Keene of Steelhead Hunter Charters. He's down in Isla Mirada, Florida right now. He'll check in from there, and then we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar. Just a reminder, my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and if you want to get in touch with me, feel free to send me an email. That address is Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Questions, comments, criticisms, thoughts, story topics, anything, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. We'll take a break. More coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show on more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, AM and FM stations in every corner of our state. You can also hear the podcast version of the show anywhere you get your podcast from, but I always say the best way to listen if you can is on your local broadcast station, including WZTK in Alpena. That's 105.7 FM. Or how about WSJM in St. Joe, 94.9 FM. And north of the bridge in Newberry, WNBY, 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Boning Archery. Michigan-based Boning has been a leader in the archery industry since 1946, when Roland Boning invented Ferrule-Tite to glue broadheads to what at the time were wooden arrow shafts. These days, Boning continues to innovate, come up with new products, new manufacturing processes for target archers and bow hunters. If you are a shooter, an archer at all, there's a good chance you use Boning products. And if not, I would encourage you to check them out. The website is boning.com, BOHNING.com. 75 years. Now, more than 75 years in the archery industry. How impressive is that? Congrats. Primal Treestands has not been around for 75 years. But in the time they have been around, they are making a significant impact in the hunting world. And in my opinion, the reason for that is a guy named Bob Ransom. Now, you know this name. Bob has been around the hunting industry for a long, long time. These days, he's at the helm of Primal Treestands, and he joins us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Bob, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. Listen, you're just getting back from the ATA show. I'm hearing mixed reports on the Archery Trade Association show. What was your experience?
Well, we had a very good show. You know, I wouldn't say it was as busy as in years past, but as we all know, the COVID situation has had an impact on the attendance in the show itself. But we had a fantastic show. And Mike, when it comes to trade shows, any kind of show, I don't base it on quantity. I base it on quality. And we talked to a lot of good people and spent some quality time with them and made some real progress.
And what's the reaction as buyers come into the Primal booth and they look at your products and you continue to expand products, come up with new products? What's the reaction to you guys at Primal? Well,
we've got a lot of unique items. A lot of them safety related. So safety related, especially when it comes to hunting from elevated positions, platforms, tree stands, that really goes over well. That really speaks a lot of volumes. If you can remember, Mike, just a little while ago, in Archer, we didn't have safety belts and harnesses, but then we had that safety belt, one wrap around you, 18 inches of slack, one wrap around the tree. Well, you can't find one of those anymore because these days people hunt with a full body harness because it's just much safer and better. So that's the transition. That's where the industry has gone to more safety related items.
Well, along that line of how the industry and how we as bow hunters have evolved and changed, when you started Ameristep, it was with one screw-in tree step. Look at how we get up a tree these days. It's a whole different ballgame.
Oh, yeah. It used to be, tree steps, and then it went to climbing sticks. Mike, you know this. If you were an archer, you didn't hunt from a ladder stand. You hunted from a hang-on stand.
Yes.
and then we kind of bent those rules a little bit, and we grew a little bit older, and we were a little bit more safety conscious. I want to say smarter, Mike. But we went to, we started hunting, from ladders. And, of course, the natural progression of that is as archers, we're hunting from the ground now. We're using portable blinds, portable ground blinds to hunt archery.
And is this because there's safety in the back of our mind, and maybe first and foremost, unfortunately, or depending on how you look at it, as a hunting community, we're getting older? There's
no doubt about it. It's lots of things. But being safe, whether you're older or younger, you don't want to fall from a tree. So you want to always take all the safety precautions necessary, and you certainly want to wear a full body harness every time. Not I forgot it this time, so I'm going to be late for my hunt if I turn around and get it. Every time you need to be strapped in.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. And are we finding out as hunters that we can be effective from a ladder stand or even a ground blind, as effective as we used to be trying to be real stealthy up in that little hang-on stand 25 feet in the air?
Absolutely. With those, when you're hunting a mature whitetail buck or any whitetail, you've got to play the wind. You've got to have a lot of things in your favor. And yes, you could be absolutely 100% as successful from the 22-foot Mac Daddy ladder stand that we have as opposed to, the many hang-on situations, setups that we have.
Speaking of mature bucks, the Ransom family had a pretty good hunting season.
Yeah, well, one of us did. My boy Bob. It's kind of funny you say that because, I followed him around all season, and he did really well. He shot some real nice deer. Got one in Michigan, one in Nebraska, and one in Texas.
Wow. You mentioned following him around. Isn't it interesting, again, as we develop in our hunting career, that we go from wanting to shoot as many bucks and as big a bucks as ourselves as possible to sharing that experience with others?
Yeah, well, Mike, we've done it so many times, and I don't say that to brag, but I mean, when it comes to shooting that nice Michigan 8-point, I would rather be with someone that has that same enthusiasm and same excitement that I had back when I was first starting out and I first started to, my first couple of deer, that's what we crave anymore. I would rather be sitting with a young hunter or a new hunter and experience what they're going through as opposed to me filling another tag with, whatever buck.
Yeah. Bob, I just saw the new catalog, and I think by the time folks hear this show this weekend, the new products will be up on the website, primaltreestands.com. That's primaltreestands.com. And, man, you guys are, don't take this the wrong way, but, man, you're just cranking out new products and new gear and accessories left and right.
Well, you have to. There's how you're going to grow. You need to always keep innovating. You need to always keep coming out. And thank you. I appreciate that because we work real hard on coming out with new products, and we came out with some real nice ones this year. We're very happy how the show went and how it's how the season's kicking off. The season meaning the selling season.
Yeah. A few things have my attention. One is that double stand, but it's not a traditional double side by side stand. It's, I don't know, you've got them at an angle. What's the name of that one?
Okay, that is the Hangout.
That's right.
And the Hangout is an 18-foot stand. And what separates it from a traditional two-person ladder is a traditional two-person ladder pretty much has a bench seat. And there's, you're shoulder to shoulder. Whereas this particular stand has two independent textiline seats, 20-inch wide textiline seats, and they're angled, meaning that the back corners meet, and we call it a wraparound platform. The platform kind of gradually wraps around the tree, and so your independent textiline seats are positioned kind of facing away from each other, yet your back shoulder they're separated, but there's 6 inches in between them. And there's a small console, V-shaped console, in between the two of you where you can set your gear, your grunt call, your binoculars, whatever it is you might set in the console in between the two of you. But, Mike, it's really a unique situation in that for the first time, you go up, it's a 20-inch wide ladder, and you ascend up into the tree. When you get to the platform, when you get to the top of the stand, you're literally making a decision. Do I go left or do I go right? And that is when the first time that occurs to you, you kind of have a little chuckle because never before have you had to make a decision whether I'm going left or right.
Well, exactly. There is nothing that I know of like this on the market. But, Bob, this isn't the first time you've done this. Over the years, I don't know how, you come up with products that didn't exist before. What is this process? Are you an engineer? Does your mind never rest? I mean, how do you come up with these things?
Mike, we do it by committee. We've got a lot of people that are involved in new products, and we work with some independent inventors as well. I work very hard on coming out with new ideas myself. Mike, when we spend as much time in the woods as we do, when I'm sitting there and my mind's idle, which when you're whitetail hunting, there's plenty of time for that a lot. And, you start to think about how you could improve something, or what would you really want out of this ladder stand or this hang-on stand that isn't available, that that would be new and innovative. I do not have any engineering background, but I do have a lot of drive. I do have drive.
That's an understatement right there. And also, as I look around the catalog at primaltreestands.com, I see a blind that reminds me very much of the Wraith.
That's correct. We came out with a blind this year called the Vision. It's real tree hillside camo. It's got brush pockets. Mike, it has the one-way see-through window coverings. Fabric on the windows. It's 360-degree viewing, and when you're sitting inside the blind, you can see right through the window panels, but yet anything on the exterior outside the blind cannot see into the blind. And that's been real popular. It also has silent slide windows, and then I mentioned the brush pockets, but it's quick and it's affordable. And, it's a 5-hub blind, and we've got all sorts of features built into it, the backpack, etc. And we're really excited to have it out, and we had a great reception for it last week at the ATA show.
Bob, hang tight. We've got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. I'm talking with Bob Ransom of Primal Treestands, the website primaltreestands.com, primaltreestands.com. By the way, if you go to that website and use the promo code Avery, Avery, you can get a discount on just about anything on that website, including my favorite blind, that Wraith 270 see-through ground blind that I talk so much about. I've hunted deer out of it. I've hunted bear out of it. I've hunted turkeys out of it. I absolutely love it. Primaltreestands.com, primaltreestands.com. Use the promo code Avery. More with Bob Ransom of Primal Treestands coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Battle Creek on WBCK. That's 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Flint on Sports Extra 1330 WTRX. And you can hear us in Port Huron, WPHM 1380 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Rapid River Knives. I've got a Rapid River knife in my pocket right now. I always carry a Rapid River knife. Handmade, craftsman quality knives made in Michigan's UP. They're made in the shop there at Rapid River. And congrats to Rapid River owner Chris Durson, who just got a beautiful mountain lion out west on a hunt out there. I'm going to try to get him on the show here in the next couple of weeks to talk about that. But check out the showroom there in Rapid River. It's absolutely beautiful. And if you can't make it there, go to the website, rapidriverknifeworks.com, rapidriverknifeworks.com. I gave away 3 of those knives, or I gave 3 of those knives as Christmas presents that I made. I made my son and 2 grandsons very happy, I'll tell you that. Right now we're talking with Bob Ransom of Primal Treestands. I love Primal Treestands. I love their ground blinds, that Wraith 270, that new breeze blind. I was using a breeze blind in Ontario last fall for my hunt there. And in fact, I think I was one of the first people ever to shoot a critter out of a breeze blind. Video on that coming up. As I was saying earlier, I'm editing that piece right now. I should have it done in the next week or so, and I will let you know more about that. Bob, we also, among all the other things you've got going on in your world, we started a new Primal Podcast. Tell me more about that.
Well, it's you and I, Mike. It's you and I on the air talking about the things we love to do the most. Spend time with our friends and family in the outdoors, and that's what we'd love to bring to people is sharing our experiences, our knowledge, ability with others to spread the cheer, so to speak. You know, the more people that get involved in our sport, in the outdoor lifestyle, the better off we are, and that's what we're promoting.
Yeah, that first podcast is out there right now. You can find it on primaltreestands.com. The first one is you and I shooting the breeze, but we're going to bring others into the podcast in the future to talk about deer hunting, turkey hunting, bear hunting, elk hunting, whatever, right? It's going to be a broad range, wide-reaching podcast.
Very much so. We've got Philip Culpepper of Hunt Club lined up to spend some time with you on the Primal Podcast. And Philip, born and raised in Georgia, he is a very knowledgeable hunter. He spent a professional lifetime filming for on the Realtree crew, and he's gone out on his own, but he has a lot of experience. And, you know, one of the things that they do down south that they've been doing for a little bit longer than we have up north, and that is Philip knows how to turkey hunt. And I think it'll be perfect timing to have Philip on the podcast with you talking about turkey hunting and his experience and what makes him successful, because he is successful.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking with him and other Primal people as well. Bob, where do we find the products? You know, I mentioned you can go to primaltreestands.com, but you're still kind of in the earlier stages of distribution. So where do we find this stuff? Where do we buy your stuff?
Northwoods in Pinconning is a great place to find the stuff. Find our stuff. Dunham's, Sportsman's Guide, Sportsman's Warehouse. Those are all great places to go and purchase our stuff. And
can we buy from the website Primal Treestands?
Yes, you can.
And if you use the promo code Avery, you can save some money.
That is correct. I was going to go there.
I beat you to it. So what else? Let's see. You're making. Oh, I also noticed too that you've got a couple of other blinds, including one, the Spring Steel, which is a very familiar model, and you've got a hub style blind that you can drive an ATV into.
Yes, that's correct. We came out with a large hub-style blind that has, I want to refer to it as the garage door. One side comes all the way up. And when I say that it's when it's a little bit larger than normal, the footprint is 66 inches by 66 inches. Most blinds are 58 by 58. So it's larger. It has a door that the whole wall panel can lift right up. Now, that lends itself well to, not only folks that are maybe confined to wheelchairs, but, to get your gear in and out of the blind, as well as, there's a crossover market for a blind of that style for people tailgating, for people going to soccer games, just being outside, doing outdoor activities. The fact that wall panel opens all the way up and open allows you to cross over into other sports.
Yeah, it's so ground blinds, hang-ons, climbers, ladder stands, accessories. You guys have got it all covered these days.
We sure do. One last thing is we make an item called the Descender. It weighs 2 pounds. It'll fit right in your pocket, and it's a safety-related item. And what you do with it, Mike, is you strap it around the tree where you would clip your harness into. And it has webbing inside of it. What this will do is if you fall, this will lower you to the ground at a controlled descent. So for somebody that was to fall out of your tree and become disoriented or not be able to get back into your stand, this will lower you to the ground. Retails for $60.
Once again, Bob, you've come up with a solution that has been bugging hunters for the longest time. I don't know how you do it, but you continue to do it, and my congrats to you. The website, primaltreestands.com, primaltreestands.com. Bob, I look forward to talking again.
Thank you, Mike.
Bob Ransom of, I will as well, you as well. Bob Ransom of Primal Tree Stands, primaltreestands.com. One more time, if you want to save some money, use the promo code Avery, and you can do just that. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, Tom Campbell of Woods-n-Waternews wraps up this first hour of Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Manistee on WTIQ, AM and FM, 1490 AM, 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Tawas on 2 stations, WIOS, 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. And you can hear us in Lansing on WILS, 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination, including your ice fishing adventures. Linwood Beach Marina, a great place to head out on Saginaw Bay and to get info on the fisheries and latest ice conditions, but keep in mind they can always change. Also, they're your Mid-Michigan Tracker and Angler Quest headquarters. For more info, check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. While you are online, head on over to woods-n-waternews.com. The website of Woods-n-Waternews, Michigan's premier outdoor publication. Tom Campbell, one of the reasons for that, with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Tom, welcome back. How was the Ultimate Fishing Show in Novi? I'm hearing mixed reports.
I think that's, Mike, it was great that the show went on, and I know they, got caught in between a little bit of a new pandemic surge and all that, but you know what? The people that came enjoyed it. We saw a lot of people. We did a lot of subscriptions, and so overall, I would say it was just good to see people, and it was good to be back into that show business in January.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the best way to do it.
And folks, the folks at Showspan, they do such a great job, and they're at the mercy of so many other. Well, you guys were. For your big outdoor show earlier, last year, you're at the mercy of something you can't control.
Yeah, exactly right, Mike. And you looked at them and they did everything they could. They had it going, and other than the last minute show, the cancellations from some of the Canadian outfitters, and the show looked great. And like I said, it was great just to see people out and talk to people and be back in that show mode again.
Yeah, and whenever I see you guys at the shows, there's always people around your booth. They want to talk. Yeah. They want to tell you stories. They want to get subscriptions. They want to pick up old copies of the magazine. It's a great PR tool for you guys.
Exactly right. Yes, we meet so many people, and it's incredible, Mike, how many people come and, well, I do this every year. I do this every year here. I do this every year here. One gentleman came and said, well, my subscription, ran out because I couldn't do it here last year. I go, well, you can call us. You can go online.
There are other ways to reach us.
Never let that happen again. But it's all part of being there, and that's the great part.
Yes, we would not want to miss any editions of the Woods and Water News. What's coming up this time?
Actually, Mike, we just put the finishes touches on that February issue, and it should be heading out to the newsstands as we speak and put in the mail. And we've got some great, as always. The writers that we have are fantastic. But one certainly one you want to check out is Mark Romanek has talked about refining winter walleye jigging. And I think if you're into the ice fishing, you need to pick up a copy just for that story. It's fantastic. But, and we'll always fill it in. We're still filling in with great deer stories. We got a couple nice big bucks on the cover again, and their stories are inside. And, of course, we're expanding on. We got a good piece on predator hunting in there. And, I know you've had Drew Youngdyke on your show a few times, and Drew is doing a great series this winter, and he calls it Simple Warm Water Flies for Cold Winter Ties. So here's something you can do in the cold winter when you got a little extra time on your hands. You can tie some flies that you'll use next summer for the part one was panfish, part two he's doing on bass. So it's a great series, and it's something everybody might want to pique a little interest, maybe. And it's not complicated, which is nice. And he writes it for a beginner or an advanced. So it's a great series, and we're excited about that happening.
You guys always do a wonderful job of keeping very broad-based. I mean, I know you've got to follow the season, so, deer hunting and then ice fishing and such, but every month there's something in there for just about anyone who loves the outdoors.
Yeah. Exactly right, and that's that's the feedback we get too from being at those shows. It's amazing, a broad spectrum of people, and so many females now come to the booth and say, "Oh, I got to renew my subscription," and that's so great to see. And I hope we had a lot to do with that. You're exactly right. We try to appease everybody and try to stretch that outdoor value to hit all markets, all segments of that outdoor too. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And who doesn't like to read about something that you're going to do in the summertime in the cold of winter?
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you're talking about deer hunting. I feel like deer hunting has become a topic for you guys year round. Mark Romanek, isn't it something? I mean, a guy like Mark, jigging for wintertime walleye, which you think has been around for generations. What more can you learn? And Mark comes up with something like that. Drew, who I still consider one of the younger guys, the newer guys in the industry, although he keeps saying he's not that young, comes in from a fresh perspective. It's all great.
Exactly right. You're so right, Mike. Yep, absolutely.
Well, keep up the good work, Tom, and I will look forward to. I did not run into you at the Novi show. Last minute I couldn't come down, but I'll look to see you at the Outdoor Rammer show.
All right. Sounds good, Mike. Very good.
Tom Campbell of Woods-n-Waternews, Michigan's premier outdoor publication. The website woods-n-waternews.com, woods-n-waternews.com. We will take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back in our second hour, Lieutenant Jason Wicklund of the DNR, he's the guy who is in charge of their recruit school, hiring new people, helps train these new people. What's that all about? And more than Nick Green of MUCC. And we'll wrap up the hour with this week's Ask Avery segment coming up in the second hour of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Treestands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network, a radio show, a 3-hour weekly radio program on more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan. Radio, radio, radio. I say radio because this is, first and foremost, a radio show. It is scheduled, produced, distributed, formatted as a radio show. And I think the best way to listen, if you can, is on your local AM or FM station. We got a bunch of them across the state. But if you can't, it's nice to know there's a podcast version of the show as a backup. Same content, exactly the same content, except the broadcast stations get the content of the show before the podcast version is uploaded. Or dropped, as they say. I don't know why they say, oh, the podcast has been dropped. You don't drop it. You upload it. How does it get dropped? I think podcasting is great. In fact, I strongly encourage people who have a story to tell and they want to get the word out or talk about a topic. Podcasting is wonderful. I mean, honestly, these days, you can take your phone, talk into it, and upload it as a podcast. It doesn't get any easier. Whereas this radio show, I'm in a studio right now surrounded by professional grade equipment and a transmitter and satellites and such. And, we do it, and we've been doing it for so long, it's second nature to us. But it would be very, very hard for somebody to do what we're doing here to start out. But if you have a topic you want to discuss and you have a story to tell and people you want to reach, and you're not going to reach a bunch of people right off the bat, but you can grow your audience. I really like podcasting. You can hear the podcast version of the radio show anywhere you get your podcasts. I mean, literally, from Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Odyssey, iTunes. I mean, it's everywhere. It's on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I put it up on my Facebook page. And we even put a version up on YouTube. And it's just audio. There is no video. Well, there's a video background, but so you can listen to it there as well. Speaking of podcasting, the Outdoor Magazine Podcast Network, let me put a plug in for that. Each month I do a podcast for offshore tackle, Angler Quest boats, Polar Craft boats, Shadow Hunter blinds, and the newest one we just started, we were talking about in the first hour with Bob Ransom of Primal Treestands. It's the Primal Podcast. Best place to look for those probably on the different websites. For example, Offshore Tackle's podcast, you can find it on offshoretackle.com. Oh, so what else is going on? Last week, we had a buddy of mine, Tony Soli, retired conservation officer, on talking about an incident he had on Saginaw Bay a few years ago. And we were talking about, the training of becoming a conservation officer, the process of becoming a game warden. And I'll admit, I have a lot of friends who I call them game wardens. And to me, that's a sign of respect. When I say warden to me harkens back. In my mind, when I say warden or game warden, I see a guy in 1960 wandering around the wilds of the UP enforcing fish and game laws. So to me, it's a sign of respect. Now, that job has changed a lot since those guys were wandering around the UP in the 60s. These days, conservation officers are highly trained, highly skilled. They're surrounded by gear and equipment and communication devices, and it's a far cry from what it used to be. Or is it? Lieutenant Jason Wicklund would have a good handle on this. He is a native Yooper. He is a conservation officer. In fact, he is the guy these days who's in charge of, pretty much in charge of the recruit school, bringing people in to be conservation officers. So I wanted to bring him on to talk a little bit about that and more. Lieutenant, welcome back to the show. Nice to have you along with us. How are you?
It's great to be back. Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about you. How did you go down this journey? I mean, you grew up, far western UP?
Yeah, I grew up in Iron County, Iron River specifically. And like most people in the UP, when you had to go an hour to Walmart or an hour to McDonald's or the movie theater, you had to make your own fun. So for many of us growing up, I happened to live on a lake, so I was able to hunt and fish at pretty much my leisure. Just walk out the door and there you go. But a lot of the people I I associated with and grew up with were in the same boats. You know, we get together and fish on the weekends and hunt, and we'd ride ORVs and go ice fishing all the time, and it was a great experience. And little did I know that those experiences helped foster the growth and the training that I needed to be a conservation officer. And we had a conservation officer come to the school one day, and I think it was career week, where you had a bunch of different agencies and departments come in and talk. But when he walked in there and he had a fur kit and everything else, I thought, yep, that's the job I want to do. So I know that a lot of people remember the 80s and 90s when there was thousands of applicants and there was lottery systems and everything to get into the DNR. And I heard the same thing when I was looking at it in the 90s, is, oh yeah, you'll never get in. There's so many people and there's so few spots. But as luck would have it, you know, I applied in 2002. I got accepted in 2004. I started the academy that fall, and it's a great career, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Tell me about that academy. I hear stories about this, that it's very tough, very demanding, and maybe a little intimidating too. And I wonder if that isn't on purpose, to find out what people are made of before they get too far into the process.
Yeah, you're exactly right. The academy, it's a paramilitary style academy, but it is for a reason, because like I always told the recruits, you know, we bring everybody in from all walks of life, and everybody's got different experiences. Everybody's got different social skills, training. People have had, been brought up differently, but in order to find where everybody is, we got to start someplace. So I always took a line and drew it. I put everybody 25 rows of people stacking vertically. I put a line right in the middle. Let's say some of you guys are going to be above this line, some of you guys are going to be below this line. The process is going to get everybody to where we need to be, but you know, the process is designed to push you past your comfort zone. And now more than ever, I think a lot of the youth have never had they've had a lot of advantages with technology, and to instill the discipline, because we work alone. We work by ourselves. We're tasked with being self-starters, self-sufficient, and we don't have an office or somebody, you know, standing next to you saying you need to do this, or you need to get that done. So you have to instill that level of determination, that level of confidence, you know, that level of accountability into people, and we do a very good job of that. And the process does exactly what it's supposed to do. I mean, we've had a lot of people leave the academy for various reasons. It's not because of the training. It's usually because it's a decision they made, and they realize that, and that's great. That's what you want the process to do. You want everybody to realize that, you know, this is what I'm getting into. This is the commitment that I need to make. And if they're not willing to commit to that, or they can't commit to that, then you know, we offer them the opportunity to leave. And it's always disappointing to lose people, because that's one less conservation officer out in the state. But we've been fortunate to run schools every year too, so that allows us to fill that spot in the next school. But the academy is grueling. It's a mental, it's a physical, it's emotional, it's all that stuff wrapped in one. But I tell them the first day, if you think you're gonna rest on your laurels, or what got you here, and you're going to be an individual, then you're not going to make it, because it's designed to expand your mind, expand your body, push you past your comfort limits, find other people that are in the same boat as you, and rely on them, and then you become an effective team. And for me, it's great to watch. The first 10 weeks, everybody's kind of trying to feel each other out, see who, you see the leaders emerge, you see people struggle, and everybody struggles in the academy. And then by the time you get to week 15, week 16, 17, you watch everybody come together as a group, and they solve problems, and they're there for each other. And it's just it's an awesome experience to see for me, and that's why I do it.
But it's not a job that everybody's cut out for. I mean, you can go in there as a young man or woman and think, this is exactly what I want to do. I am well suited for this. I am physically prepared for this, and just find out, hey, it's not either the job isn't what I thought it was, or I'm not responding to this the way I thought I would.
Exactly. And when I was going through, there was no social media. There wasn't any articles. I couldn't just go and dial up a conservation officer or stop by their house and say, hey, tell me what I'm going to get into, because our training was evolving, and we started running our own training. And even when we started to do that, we had to build that training up to where it is today, and we've come a long way. So there wasn't the press releases. There wasn't the weekly blogs. All we had was, back then, it was a weekly report. It wasn't a biweekly report where you could see what conservation officers were doing around the state. And that's the only information I had going into it. I went in there completely. I knew I wanted the job. I knew a little bit about the job, what it did. But, I mean, when I got in the academy that first day, the first week, it's like, holy cow, there's a lot here. So we try to prepare everybody now because we have recruiters, we have blogs, we have videos we put out. So the people that come in there, like when I first started my academies back in 2014, you know, people would come in there and they'd leave and say, oh, I didn't realize that you guys weren't, you guys were law enforcement, that you guys wore a gun and a vest every day, and that you guys didn't do a lot of wildlife biologist stuff. And I don't expect to hear that anymore, because maybe back then with the lack of social media and all the things that we put out there for the public to have some transparency, you know, if anybody starts the academy now on day one and says, geez, I didn't realize you guys were law enforcement officers, come on. You know, it's pretty easy to realize that we have a niche out there where...
Lieutenant, hang tight. Listen, I sorry to interrupt. I'm out of time. I do have to take a break. I want to talk more about this. We're talking about the academy and conservation officer, the role, the job, with Lieutenant Jason Wicklund of the Michigan DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Iron Mountain on WMIQ 1450 AM. You can hear us in Ludington on News 97.98, 98.7 WLDN, and you can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC 660 AM and 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by VersaSkins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. Michigan-based, family-owned VersaSkins. You know I love that combination. Michigan-based, family-owned. And when they make a great product like Paul Perone at VersaSkins does, it makes it very, very easy to talk about a product like this. Great quality hunting clothes. And the concept is, why change and buy a new set of hunting clothes for every season? For example, my VersaSkins, I wear camouflage, just a traditional, camo Realtree in the fall for bow hunting season. When the firearm season comes around, you take a blaze orange skin and you snap it on and zip it on outside that, and you've got a blaze orange hunting coat, and I didn't pay any more money for it. Now with predator season, you can put on white camouflage, white camo. I think it's a great concept. Just change your skin for the season you're in. And these days, VersaSkins has realized there's a real market out there for big people, big hunters, and they go up to 6X. Check them out online at versaskins.com. That's versaskins.com. While you're online, check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And then head on over to michigan.gov/DNR. Michigan.gov/DNR, the website for the DNR, Michigan DNR, very all-encompassing. Right now I'm talking with Lieutenant Jason Wicklin of the Law Enforcement Division of the DNR. He is a veteran conservation officer and a native Yooper, and he's the guy in charge of the academy these days. Lieutenant, before the break, we were talking about something. I cut you off. I apologize. If you want to follow up on that, feel free.
No, that's fine. Like I said, our academies we're going to start our academy this year. We're still working through the logistics on that, and the posting is open right now. It's going to be open till February 28th. So you can go to the website. You can go to michigan.gov/conservation officers, and all the application process and steps are there. And, right now we are looking at some of the metrics yesterday on the numbers of applications, and they're down. And that's to be expected with the current climate and law enforcement and the pandemic and everything else. But, I encourage people to apply. We're not going to hire every year. So if you're sitting at home and you're thinking, maybe next year, I would ask those people to get in the process, because there might not be a next year. We're funding based, and we only can legislatively have so many conservation officers at one time. So when we meet our cap, then we're not going to be hiring. And right now we're going to be hiring. So it's a rewarding career. It's kind of like a choose your own way career. I mean, you wake up in the morning, decide what you want to do, how you want to go to get there, whether you want to take your truck, your four-wheeler, your boat, your snowmobile, your jet ski, your canoe, your kayak, and there's a lot of a lot of isolation or social distancing involved because you're not at an office, you're not in a car with a partner. But it's truly a rewarding career, and I hope that your listeners out there that are considering this career. And I've had people recently in their mid-60s calling me inquiring, and that's great. We graduated 3 people that were in their 50s from the last school, and the one guy was 64 years old and said he's been a game warden at heart for 40 years, helping out and calling in stuff, and now he wants to do the job. And God bless those people, because the fact that we can get those things, those people interested, and we're capturing that age group, and all the experience is great. So I know it's a long process, and it's a young man's game. It's a lot of walking and lifting and traversing uneven ground and everything else. But I mean, age is just a number, and it doesn't. We don't have an age limit as far as how old you have to be. You've got to be 21 years old to apply, though.
So who are you looking for? I mean, yes, I think it's great that a 50-year-old guy, somebody in their 60s would be involved. But, I mean, your ideal candidate, it is a younger person because it's physically demanding. Do you want people who, like you, grew up in the outdoors hunting and fishing, or can you teach them those types of skills?
That's a great question, and I know that that's one that we get a lot of people that they don't hunt and fish and they've never ridden a snowmobile or RV, and that's fine, because just like anything else, if you've been doing things a certain way, or you've been doing things differently than the way we teach, it's tough to relearn all those skill sets. It's like shooting. If you're a shooter and you've grown up using shooting skills, and then you come in and we teach you something completely different, you're going to struggle. So the more you know, the better you are, because the classes in the academy are high speed. They go through a week at a time, and there's usually some testing and evaluation scenarios when we move on. So if you don't understand, what a walleye is versus a perch versus a pike, you're going to struggle. But we have the best instructors in the state, and we'll teach you all that stuff. So that shouldn't be a precursor for somebody saying, well, I don't want to apply because I don't know how to hunt and fish, because we'll teach you all that stuff. We'll teach you the right way. We'll teach you how to do it. We'll teach you everything you need to know about it, so you're comfortable going out there and enforcing the law. So, but like I said, with everything else, the more you know, the more that you've experienced, the more you have to draw on, because as your radio listeners, and too, if somebody comes up to you and they have no idea about a subject, you can pretty much spot that out right away. And that's what we don't want, is having people out there unfamiliar or uncomfortable in those situations. We want professionals, and we want them to have that knowledge to go out there, recognize what that hunter's doing, recognize what's going on there, and if there's any violations, address it.
It's an interesting situation because, as you say, first and foremost, a conservation officer is a law enforcement officer. So you've got that side of the picture, which these days takes on a whole nother set of issues. So you've got that on one side. And then beyond that, you've got the fish and game side of things. So you've got a guy who's a law enforcement, or gal, who's a law enforcement officer, but yet they've got to be an expert at identifying waterfowl, identifying fish. I mean, there's a tremendous skill set you guys are developing here.
You're right, and we're truly unique as far as what we do, because as state law enforcement officers, you come across all sorts of stuff. I mean, you may want to focus on fish and game, but you're traveling between state game areas and end up dealing with some type of criminal behavior, or come upon a car accident where you have to switch gears, and that's what's great about the job too, is no day's ever the same. We're not just waiting for calls to come in or sitting in a median running radar. You're out looking for resource users to educate and protect and enforce the resources, but you're also available for the general criminal side of things. And you'll see that with all the life-saving awards that we've been getting recently, because our officers are highly trained. They're in areas, and they go from checking fishermen to responding to an overdose, or responding to a car accident and end up saving a life. So that's great, and that's why we train the way we train, and do what we do.
An officer in the far western UP might go for hours or certainly many, many miles before they make contact with a hunter or angler. Yet, if you head down to, say, the southeast part of the Lower Peninsula, the metro area, you're going to be surrounded by people, and it's going to be it's a whole different experience. Does somebody come out of the academy and do they get a choice or a say, or even they can even say, look, I want to be one place or another, or is it strictly a random type deal?
Well, back in the day, it used to be you just went where the vacancies are. And in my schools, I always gave them an opportunity. They'd write a memo, and they'd pick the 3 counties they wanted to be in and why. And we try to accommodate them the best way that we could. This last school, we actually identified the vacancies before we even gave them the conditional offers, and we gave them, the counties that they picked coming in, so they knew right away where they were going to go. So I don't know which way we're going to go this time because the vacancies are constantly changing, but I think that for somebody that, like for me from the UP, I wouldn't have done well down in Detroit. I'd never been below the bridge until I got in the process. But for somebody that grew up downstate, they may think of the UP as outhouses and sparse electricity and dirt roads everywhere. So we try to accommodate everybody, but our field training process, we move everybody around the state so they get to see the different areas of the state and how things are done differently. Because you're right, in the West End, the UP, I may not have backup, and if I do have backup, they may not be able to find me or get to me because not everybody has a 4-wheel drive or knows all those backwoods and 2 tracks that are out there. Whereas downstate, you call for help and you can hear the radios, the sirens turn on all around you. It's a different world, but it's wherever you're at in the state. There's no assignment out there that's a bad assignment. Every assignment's a great assignment, and it is what you make of it.
So, how many people are you looking for?
This year, we're looking for 15 people. So we tried for 30 last year. We ended up with 28 that graduated that are out there. So this year, we're going to try for 15 people.
And how are the numbers? I mean, years ago when I was a VCO, the numbers were real low. In fact, that's one of the reasons why they brought in VCOs. I don't remember if it was a funding issue or what, but there weren't enough officers. Has that changed these days? Do you have a higher staffing levels?
The numbers we compete because when you're going to look for a job, we're going against MDOC. They're hiring all the time. Michigan State Police are hiring all the time. Motor carriers hiring all the time. So we're looking at the numbers are going down, and I'm pulling up a spreadsheet right now, and I'm looking since we started running our consecutive schools in 2013. You're looking at numbers in the thousands, and now we're down to numbers in the hundreds. And I attribute that because MSP runs multiple schools. The job is a little bit different. But in 2013, we had 1,531 applicants. And for our last school in 2021, we had 378 applicants.
Let me ask you this: If do you have to fill that number, a given number, or if, God forbid, you had people come through the academy and you said, I just don't think they're going to make it, can you leave the number short, or do you feel obligated to put people out there just to fill those spots?
Well, in a perfect world, we'd have more than enough candidates like we had last time, where we had so many candidates we had to make tough decisions and choose the 30 best candidates. That hasn't always been the case in years past, where we didn't have enough people to fill seats and we'd want to hire 30. We end up hiring 25.
Yeah, I got you.
So our screening process is very, very in-depth. And by the end there, we have a list of people. And I'm not going to get too much into how the selection works, but we have a list and we go down that list, and those people on there are the best fit for us. And we've vetted them. We've done the backgrounds. We've done the research on them. But yeah, the last school was the first time that I've been involved where we actually had so many people. We had to turn away quality candidates because we just couldn't hire them all at one time. And I hope they're back in this process. But if we went through this whole process, which is a 6-month hiring process, and we needed 15 spots and we only had 10 candidates, then that's a failure on me. That's a failure on the recruiters. That's a failure on everybody. But when you're looking at 1,531 people 8 years ago, and we're down to 378 for the last group, that's pretty telling.
All right, listen, I got to let you go. Michigan.gov/ what's the website real quick?
Michigan.gov/conservation officers.
Until February 1st?
February 28th.
All right, Lieutenant, appreciate your time. Interesting career choice. I think it's fascinating. If I was a younger guy, I might take a serious look at that. We'll take a break. Nick Green of MUCC coming up. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Escanaba on WCHT. AM and FM, 600 AM, 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Traverse City on WTCM 580 AM. And you can hear us in Muskegon on WKBZ 1090 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Wilds Plumbing and Heating. Plumbing, heating, air conditioning, duct work cleaning, sump pumps, you name it, everything to keep your house comfortable, dry. The folks at Wilds can help you out, as they have for me for so many years. Their slogan, their motto is whatever it takes. I love to work with people who say whatever it takes to make the customer happy. You've got to appreciate that. The website, wildsplumbingandheating.com. That's wildsplumbingandheating.com. While you're online, please check out mucc.org. That's the website of the Michigan United Conservation Clubs, Michigan's premier conservation group, in my opinion. Nick Green is their Chief Information Officer, and he joins us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Nick, welcome back. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Mike.
Always a pleasure. And I know you've got some news. You guys are always working there in Lansing, but something on the commercial guiding regs?
Yeah. So we're working through House Bills 5358 through 5360 right now. That's a package of bills that are in the House Natural Resources and Recreation Committee. We're hoping to get those passed out in the coming weeks and then do some work on the House floor, and then we kind of envision a lot of our work being on the Senate side. That's traditionally where we hit road bumps, but this is a commercial guiding package that we've worked on for about 6 years. We've had a resolution since 1997, a member-passed resolution. Kind of the quick hits from it are it would be a $150 fee for 3 years for guides, so $50 a year. This would not apply to folks who are already under the jurisdiction of like the U.S. Coast Guard. So, big water charter boats, some of the inland waters. The license fees would be deposited in the Game and Fish Protection Fund. And then the other big kind of point we're trying to make is that folks with felony or certain fish and game violations, which include like hunter-angler harassment, unlawful taking game and fish, illegal transport of carcasses, those would preclude someone from being able to be a guide. Another important part that we've kind of heard questions on is if helpers of guides have to actually have this license, and they do not, as long as they are not with the client solely in the field. So if they are just helping to bait bear baits or, doing some other stuff at camp, that's not required for them to have the license. So those are kind of a couple of questions we've been getting and wanted to answer and start to talk about this a little more openly as we try to get it moved through the legislature.
And I appreciate that. So what you're trying to do is just establish kind of a baseline or a minimum set of requirements for people who are taking folks. I'm thinking primarily hunting, right? Because the fishing guides are already covered as a charter captain, or are the inland guys not covered that way?
Most are, because I shouldn't say most. The ones that connect to the Great Lakes are covered.
Gotcha.
But if they're inland guiding outside of that, they are not. But most of them kind of already are under the U.S. Coast Guard regulations. But, other states, when we look around, this isn't unheard of. I mean, this is a very common, there's probably 10 to 15 states that have something similar, and most of them are much more strict. They require classes and thousands of dollars a year, and in our opinion, this is a very small cost to keep clients safe, help try to get some oversight and collect some data on our natural resources from these guides, and just make sure we're doing everything we can to keep everyone happy and everyone kind of in the boat together.
I actually am very much in favor of it. You might say, well, it's another attempt by government to regulate people. But when you've got folks that are taking people out hunting and fishing, number one, they're taking their money. So there is a certain level of expectation there. But also you've got their safety and well-being that you have to keep in mind, too. So I think to set a minimum level of standard for those people makes complete sense, Nick.
Yeah, and you also have to remember that good, bad, or indifferent, they're also taking money to extract from a resource that all of us pay to fund, So we don't feel like $150 for 3 years is really going to put anyone out of business. A lot of guide trips make more than that. There were some CPR requirements. I believe those have been removed, but we would hope that most folks, when they're booking a guide, that's a question you ask. Are you CPR certified? We've had a past board member who had a heart attack and almost died at one of our meetings. Had we not had someone that knew CPR and how to use an AED, he would be dead. So these are things that can save a life. And again, all MUCC staff it takes a day of training to do CPR. Little ask, it's something you should be asking your guides when you book.
Yeah, that's a good point. Also, I hadn't even thought of the fact that, people are making money off a state resource, a resource that's owned by the public. So that's an interesting perspective as well. 6 years, Nick, that's a long time to be working on something like this.
It is, in traditionally we've hit snags with the Republicans in the Senate, and it's been, as you would expect, an overreach or a regulation where a regulation isn't needed. And some of those points are plausible, and we took those into consideration as we offered new amendments up to this bill. But hopefully we're in a starting point now that we can at least start working on this. And another part we didn't talk a lot about is the data. If these guides, a requirement will be to have them report catch or harvest data, and that's invaluable to biologists. That's data we don't have currently, aside from U.S. Coast Guard requirements for inland charter boat guys.
All right, Nick, I appreciate you bringing us up to speed on that. It's an interesting issue, and I'll look forward to learning more.
Thanks, Mike.
Nick Green of MUCC, the website mucc.org. That's mucc.org. By the way, if you want to save 25% signing up to become an MUCC membership, you can use the promo code Mike, all caps, MIKE, and save 25% to sign up to become a member of MUCC. I'm a member. I'm a proud member of MUCC. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, this week's Ask Avery segment, and then looking forward to our final hour, Michigan charter boat captain Lance Keene of Steelhead Hunter Charters is down in Isla Mirada, Florida, and that's where he'll spend the winter. He wants you to come down and see him. That and more coming up yet this week right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Caro on WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. And you can hear us in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by my friends at Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. The way this works is, this is your chance to get involved in the content of the show. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to know about? What do you want to learn about? And this is a question you can direct to me, or you can ask me to reach out to some of my contacts in DNR, MUCC, or something like that, or in the hunting and fishing industries, and see if I can get some insight for you. The best way, I think, to get these questions to me is to send me an email, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. In the subject line, please put Ask Avery. And the reason I'm being so specific here is I get so many different emails and so many people reaching out to me through the social media, private messaging or messaging platforms. It's become very confusing. So, again, I recommend, if you can, to send me an email, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and in the email subject line, put Ask Avery. That's exactly what James Smith did. He said, can you answer this? Why is the southern part of the state a shotgun zone? Yes, we can use .350 Legend or .450 Bushmaster or black powder, yet we can't use more traditional rifles. Was it always like this? What is the reasoning behind this? He says, thanks. I'm sure you can come up with some kind of an answer. Before even checking with the powers that be, I wrote him back and said, James, I'm pretty sure this is a safety issue. But I did some checking. In fact, I checked with Lieutenant Jason Wicklund, who was with us at the beginning of this hour. And he says, yes, it is a safety issue. He says the southern zone has a lot more open land and the rifle bullets travel a lot farther. So it's safety that drives that decision. He said, if you look at all the bullet damage issues statewide, the majority of those and hunting accidents are in the southern zone. Adding high-powered rifles would create more of a risk for damage and injury and death. And he said it's been that way a long, long time. In fact, it's been that way as long as I can remember. Think about this. A bullet, say from an .06 or a .270 or something, in theory, if you were to, point it up at a 45-degree angle, which you wouldn't when you're hunting, can travel like 5 miles. And what do they say about when you pull the trigger? You are responsible for that bullet. Once it leaves your gun, you are responsible for it no matter where it goes, no matter where it ends up, even if it's not something you were aiming at. So, yeah, I get the fact that the center fire rifles, because of their trajectory, are something you don't want to deal with in a more populated area. And I have firsthand situation here. I grew up, as you know, on the west side of the state, and I grew up just north of M57. Well, and that is the rifle zone. Where we are right there, it is the rifle zone, because basically the rifle zone basically is like M57. I mean, it jogs and moves and such, but basically M57, and I was north of there. So it was a rifle zone. Now, when I was a kid growing up, it wasn't that heavily populated, so it wasn't that big a deal. But even then, you know, my dad taught me, when you're sitting back there, unless you're in the middle of the woods, you got to look around. Is there a farmhouse over there? Is there a barn over there? You know, just you got to pay attention. That area now has become quite, I can't say heavily populated, but much more populated. There are a lot more people, a lot more homes, a lot more subdivisions in that area that I grew up, and it is still a rifle zone. And it is very hard to argue for that still being a rifle zone. It is. I can't imagine going out there right now and deer hunting in that area with a rifle. I would be very, very nervous. You know, personally, I'd like to see that zone moved north, maybe to M46 or something like that. And there has been talk of doing that. But yeah, it's a safety issue. And then you got to think, okay, whether it's this or something else, just because it's technically legal and technically allowed, is it still a good idea? Going back to the rifle zone, if you are hunting in a part of the state that the rifle zone boundary has not caught up to the population change, is it morally and ethically right to be out there with a center fire rifle when you know that the area is too populated to do that? Maybe grab one of those 450s or 350s, or take a muzzleloader, or, you know, shotgun with slugs or whatever. Just because something is technically illegal doesn't mean that it's the right thing to do. James, I appreciate you bringing that up. I think that's a very, very good question, very timely question as we wrap up the deer season. If you would like to send me a question for the Ask Avery segment, it's an easy process. Send me an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. In the subject line, put Ask Avery and ask away. It can be a question for me. It can be a question for DNR, MUCC, somebody in the hunting and fishing industry, somebody that I might have access to that you don't. I would be more than happy. Again, the email address, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's going to wrap up the second hour of this week's Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back in hour number 2, Lance Keene of Steelhead Hunter Charters, wild game chef Dave Minar, of course, and lots more. My email address, by the way, again, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, and the website is mikeaveryoutdoors.com. Lots more coming up in hour number 3. Stay with us.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Treestands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Yes, indeed, it is Mike Avery. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. So glad to have you along with us as we work our way through this month of January. I don't know what the weather is like outside your window, outside your vehicle as you are listening to the show right now. But I can tell you this. Earlier in the week, it was really, really cold. And I do see the forecast for the weekend. Looks like it's going to get cold again. I mean, really cold, bitter cold. frigid cold, the kind of cold that makes a guy like me just kind of want to get a bunch of office work done and not have to go outside. I know. I make my living talking about outdoor stuff, right? I get it. But when it gets real cold like that and not being much of an ice fisherman anymore, I just think, oh, man, wouldn't it be nice just for a few days to get away from that cold and go somewhere warm? Now, I'm not the kind of a guy who really likes to go sit on a beach and watch the waves. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. Give me a cigar and the right kind of refreshment, I could probably enjoy it. But I would find it much more appealing to go someplace warm and go hunting or fishing. Lance Keene decided that's something he wanted to do a few years ago. And he's been down there every winter since then. You know Lance. Lance of Steelhead Hunter Charters and Trout Scout Charters. Very well-known river guide here in Michigan. A big water salmon and trout guy as well. But he also, this time of year, he heads down to Florida. And obviously he's got a lot of clients from Florida. But an awful lot of Michigan people, snowbirds, go down and fish with him as well, and Lance joins us because he's got an off day, a blow day. He joins us on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Lance, welcome back. How are you?
Good. How you doing, Mike?
Well, I'm doing good, but I'm not down there where you are. Where do we find you these days, Lance?
I'm in Alamorada, Florida.
And how is the weather right now?
It's just windy today. There's some rain offshore, but it's really not that bad. But we all decided to stay on land today, so.
Well, and I'm glad you did because it's really quite hard for me to get in touch with you this time of year because you're busy as can be.
Yep, it's full on every day right now.
So tell me a little bit about how you ended up down there. I mean, I used to think of you as a really well-known Michigan guy, but yet these days you're really making a name as a Florida guy too.
Yeah, a really good friend of mine, Jim Bennett. He's been around the Great Lakes fisheries for a long time. He was doing the same thing. Came down here. He's been down here for 35 years. And then back in like 2012 and 13, when it was really cold, our big rivers froze and we couldn't fish. And basically we sat around for a month and a half or 2 months. And I said, enough's of that. Time to go find some other work somewhere I can fish in when it's not so cold. And I came down here and fell in love with it. And that's what I've been doing ever since.
Now, did you have experience down there when you first went down?
Not in the Keys. I used to go saltwater fishing every spring break with my family. We'd go to Orange Beach, Alabama, and do the bottom fishing and the backcountry fishing and the overnight tuna trips and cobias and things like that. So I had some experience with a cast net, back there, and so I knew how to throw a net and kind of understood the saltwater game a little bit from there. So.
Was it hard to really master that fishery, or if you're a good freshwater fisherman, you can make an easy transition?
If you understand, like structure and fish, and the tides probably was my hardest thing to learn, but you understood them pretty quick after a few days on the water.
Well, tell me more about that because I don't understand tides at all. How does that affect things?
It's just the flow of the water. These fish turn on their feeding patterns. When you got flow, when you don't have any flow, like tides slack, it's not very good. So timing in all these spots, is trying to be at the right place at the right time is kind of how it all works.
And what's your window of opportunity? I mean, is it hours and hours where it's downtime or just a few minutes or what?
No, you get, it's from the end of, say, the end of fall to the start of the rise. You got about 40 minutes, stalled out period. But you can run up and down the coast because the tides change, at different times, from north to south pole. So, you can usually find moving water throughout the day on a charter.
And what kind of fishing are you doing down there, Lance?
Right now we're just doing snook and snappers and jacks and little tarpon, things like that. The offshore guys are catching some tunas and sailfish and some wahoos and, bottom fish, mutton snappers and things like that. But our big, run of the big tarpon don't really start till about the end of March and go through, June or July.
Do you do any offshore stuff?
A little bit on the flat days. We'll go out there and we'll catch the tunas and some mahis and, we'll bottom fish for muttons and snappers and things like that. But it's got to be pretty nice for me to go out there.
Did you bring your Michigan boat down, or you got a boat down that you keep down there now?
Yeah. Yep. No, our Michigan boat's down. We got, our 24 Bay Ranger with the 250 Yamaha.
Is that apparently works out well?
Yeah, it works. Yeah, it's good. It's set up nice. The fish is good. 3 people out of it. Live wells are good. Storage is good. Can go shallow. It's got a jack plate, trolling motor, the whole 9 yards. So it works good for bridge fishing and then to the back, like around the islands and things like that.
So what is the style? I suspect you're not trolling. You're casting, jigging, such?
It's pretty much live bait fishing. Everything down here is a lot of live bait fishing. Spinning reels, pilchards that look like our alewives back home. They're 3 to 4 inchers, 1/4-ounce jigs, 1/8-ounce jigs, piece of fluorocarbon leader, and 20-pound braid does 90% of our fishing down here. Now the tarpon fishing, you just got to step up, bigger gear, bigger hooks, bigger line, things like that, and a little bit bigger bait. But that comes, later, March, April, May.
I do remember now that our mutual friend Lance Valentine was telling me he came down and fished with you one time, and he said, man, I went to Florida and he's got me jigging just like we do for walleye in Michigan.
Yeah, pretty close. I gave him a 7-foot spinning rod and a jig and a minnow. So,
do you catch the live bait, or do you go to a local shop and buy it?
No, we catch it. We'll throw the net. We'll go find it. When the trip starts in the morning, we load up and go look for bait. It could take one throw. It could take 10 minutes. It could take 2 hours, but that's part of the experience. And once you get the bait, usually your day is pretty made.
See, that's what I was thinking too. This whole process of gathering live bait, which we don't really do here in Michigan, that would be part of the adventure and part of the a unique experience for a Michigan angler.
Yep. No, people like catching the bait, so it's I take the people with me to go do it. So
throwing a cast net's a real art form, isn't it?
Yep. It takes some practice, that's for sure.
I've tried it a couple times, and it's not something that comes naturally to most people, I don't think.
Right. Yeah. No, it takes practice for sure.
So the fish that you're after, then, I always hear that saltwater fish are harder fighting fish, inch for inch or pound for pound. It sounds like you agree with that.
Oh, it's unbelievable. It's a whole different world between freshwater and saltwater fish. They definitely pull way harder for their size.
Are your trips catch and release, or is it catch and eat?
No, we do a lot of catch and release. The tarpon are protected, and there's a little snook season, and we try not to keep too many of them. It's one per person anyways. And then, like, our mangrove snappers is our dinner fish. So we try to catch, whatever you need for dinner as far as mangrove snappers go, throughout the day on a normal charter.
So in these mangroves, is this brackish water, or is it salt water, or what?
No, it's all salt water. Everything down here is salt water. Unless you go way up in the mainland, from boat, which you could do, but we're doing mostly bridges and islands, and it's got good tidal flow. It's all salt water.
And are most of your people, do they come down from up north, or are you starting to get a lot of locals too?
Well, no, there's a lot of people from, Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois that come down and go fishing.
It'd be kind of cool having a crew that you took out on Lake Michigan after Kings come down and do some fishing down there with you.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of them that do it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
I do want to talk about tarpon, because to me, I've never caught a tarpon. It's on my bucket list. I think it's one of the coolest fish out there. I want to get started in this. I'm going to have to interrupt you because we're going to run out of time. We can finish when we come back. But tell me about this tarpon fishery. Number one, the size of the fish can be very impressive.
Yep, very. The size of the fish can range from 60 to 180 pounds here, from, let's say, end of March all the way through June.
And are these fish migrating through, or are they resident fish, or what?
Yep, no, these fish are migrating. They're coming to stage for their spawn thing that they do, like full moon at the either end of April, end of May, end of June, somewhere in that zone right there. So they're staging at these bridges, like grouping up, just like salmon do in the river. They stage up in the holes before they make the push to spawn.
Except these fish are 60 to 180 pounds.
Yeah, or you could catch them bigger, but 150 to 180 pounders are all the same to me. It's big.
Yeah, that's an understatement. We're talking with Lance Keene of Steelhead Hunter Charters, Trout Scout, his website, steelheadhuntercharters.com, steelheadhuntercharters.com. But we're not talking about his Michigan fishing adventures right now. We're talking about his Isla Mirada, his Keys fishing adventures, which is what he does this time of year, and a lot of Michigan anglers go down. I got some friends from church who are trying to book a trip and get down with him as well. We'll take a break. When we come back, more about this very warm open water fishery and Lance Keene here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, AM and FM, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Houghton Lake on the Twister, 92.1 WTWS. And you can hear us in Holland on WHTC, 1450 AM and 99.7 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by MUCC's On the Ground program. OTG, as it's called, is a program to improve habitat for fish and wildlife across the state. For details, check out the Michigan United Conservation Club's website. It's MUCC.org. That's MUCC.org. And a reminder, if you use the promo code MIKE, all caps, MIKE, you can save 25% on signing up for your MUCC membership. While you are online, please head over to my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and then jump over to SteelheadHunterCharters.com. That is where you'll find more about Captain Lance Keene. Lance is a Michigan charter boat captain and river fishing guide who this time of year heads down to the Keys and spends all winter fishing warm, open water, and a lot of Michigan people go down to fish with him. Lance, I am so fascinated by this topic of tarpon. How do you catch him? Is this a jigging fishery as well?
No, it's a live bait fishery. We do a lot of chopping and chunking, which we take our mullet. We use a mullet, and they're between 6 and 10 inches long, and we'll chop some up and throw it in the water as the tide's moving it down or up, whatever way it's going. And then you can take a live mullet with a circle hook, and you can put one of him up on top, and then you can run one of those chunks back through there, and usually that's all it takes.
But you want that moving water. Is that because that current flow of the tides gets the bottom stirred up and gets this?
Well, it gets those fish moving, and it gets, stuff coming down through those funnel points, the bridges and the channels and things like that. It's just, there's constant flow of, food and activity and whatever draws them into biting, and it kind of like lines them up. They kind of get in a group and they sit there with their noses into the current. Where slack tide, they sit there and they can wander left and right. They can come out, they can go around. You're just not fishing in a fishy zone as much, where if they're stacked and packed, you can put your bait right there. It's like, thermocline out in the lake. If they're all down at 80 foot, you put everything at 80 foot.
So then, will you see a bunch of boats then around these?
No, it's not like that.
No,
Boca Pass chaos that you see. This is pretty calm fishing here. 2 to 6, 8 boats, per bridge maybe. Over that one bridge we fish a lot. Like 1.5 miles, 2 miles long. So it's not combat fishing by any means.
Oh, okay, so these aren't like the Manistee or the Muskegon. I mean, these are big, wide rivers.
Right, these channels that we're fishing.
Channels, okay.
Yeah, they're big. Yep.
Okay, so what's it like when a tarpon hits? Is it a real heavy, aggressive strike, or is it a tap?
Yep. Nope, they eat the whole thing. There's no biting. There's no mouthing it. It's either they play with it, which they'll kick it with their tail, like a live bait. They'll kick it with their tail. They'll swat at it. They'll push it, and then when they decide to eat it, they eat it. It sounds like you dropped a 55-gallon drum off the top of the bridge when it hits the water. That's what it sounds like when a tarpon eats a live bait.
Oh, man. Now, when they're down there playing around with it and kicking around, can you tell? Can you feel that in the rod?
You watch the fish. The fish will come almost completely out of the water. The bait's getting nervous. The bait gets nervous. All of a sudden, poosh, pooge. He's kicking it and playing with it, and you got the rod in your hand, and you're twitching it and wiggling it, and he's trying to play cat and mouse with you, and then all of a sudden, wham, he eats it. You can just totally tell the attitude changes between playing and time to eat it.
I had no idea this is what we're talking about.
It's all visual, and it's all, behind the boat within 40 to 50 feet back. It's not like we're running lines out there 300 feet and you're guessing. I mean, it's right in your face.
Man, that adds a whole new dimension to this whole experience.
Right. And then when you hook one, then it gets for real, because you got to go through the bridge. The fish is jumping eye level with you. You got to get the other line out of the way. We got to spin the boat around. We usually throw an anchor in an anchor buoy because that's our spot, that we're fishing. So I run up front, throw the anchor buoy, start the motor. We got the fish on. We got to turn the boat and go through the bridge, whichever way he goes, And, then we're battling them the whole time down through, just drifting like down current with the tide, fighting the fish once we get through the bridge.
Wow. As much as I love fishing in Michigan, that doesn't describe anything like we've got here, like anything
Oh,
we've got
no,
here.
we don't have, it's not even close.
So how long is this fight?
Well, if you fight the fish hard, and you're working it and you're not just sitting there holding the rod, like if you're pulling, we call it tip to tail. So you take the rod tip, put it towards the tip of his tail, really make him work for it. Honestly, 15 to 20 minutes, like it should be said and done. And that's with a good drag. I mean, I run the drags heavy because I feel like if you make the fish work for it, he kind of gives up, and then he's safer to release after we get, some pictures alongside the boat or whatever like that. You fight a fish for an hour and a half, it's just not healthy for them big fish. They just probably, lay on the bottom and croak or get eaten by a shark or whatever. So I do heavy drags, break the fish's will is what I like to call it, and get them in and get some pictures real quick, and then, revive them for just a second, and they usually will take right off.
You mentioned sharks. Is there a shark fishery?
Well, sometimes we have a shark problem, but it's not bad. It could turn bad if you the farther you float out, oceanside or bayside, yeah, you could have a shark encounter, bulls or hammers or whatever. So,
man, you're talking about things I can't even relate to at all.
Yeah, you're talking about a shark that's the size of your boat going to come up and eat a 150-pound tarpon.
Oh, that's not like trolling for 18-inch walleye on Saginaw Bay.
No, not at all.
Oh, not at all. Man. And you say these tarpon like to jump.
Oh, yeah. They'll jump like crazy. Yep, they'll jump like crazy. I mean, eye level, 6-foot fish coming eye level with you. So, it's pretty impressive. All
catch and release?
Yep, all the tarpon are catch and release, yep. And big fish like that, you can't pull in the boat. It's A, illegal, and B, it's just going to break something or break you. So we try to just kind of like leader grab, belly, hug it kind of alongside the boat, and the other person just kind of starts snapping pictures, and that's about the best you can do with, a fish that big. A lot of times we'll get them up and we can do a couple pinwheels with them, at the front of the boat, with this leader, and get some good long shots of him. But yeah, as far as somebody picking up and handling one, it can't do it. It's just too big of a fish. You're just going to rip his gills off, the whole 9 yards. Everything's just bad. So they protected those fish, keep them in the water, and then just, do your side shot pictures as best you can.
So what's the window of opportunity if we come down and want to do some tarpon fishing with you? What's the timetable?
Well, it starts, middle to the end of March, but prime is April, May, and half of June.
And are you booked up like every day?
I'm busy right now. I do have some stuff still left open for April, May, but my early stuff booked up faster because people wanted to come down for after New Year's and the holidays and everything. So I'm busy right now. Busy February. March looks pretty good, but yeah, April and May still have plenty of room in there for tarpon madness.
So do you fish the rivers at all in the fall now?
Oh, yeah. I fished all the way up to Christmas.
You did? Okay.
Yeah. And we had a pretty good run there. We had that rain. What was it, about the first week of December, I think it was. And, we had a great shot of fish that came in the river. It was actually pretty dang good.
And how was your summer on the Big Lake?
It was fine. I didn't have I've seen worse and I've seen better, so I can't say it was I can't say it was too bad. We had nice size fish. We had a good lake trout fishery, like we expect that. And then, we had pretty much salmon from June through September. So,
and no reason to believe. I mean, there were some big fish caught out there last summer.
Yeah, we set a new state record. I think that's pretty big.
Isn't that something?
That was something. That was a heck of a fish.
I for years I've been expecting the Michigan State walleye record to be beaten, but I never thought these days we'd get a new king record.
I can't believe the walleye record hasn't been changed either. But yeah, for a salmon, and I think you're going to see a steelhead here pretty quick because, I'm at like a handful of the 19, 18, 19, 20 pounders, seeing some 20, 21 pounders caught. So what do we got to get to, like 26 something?
I don't even know.
I'm thinking steelhead's going to be pretty forthcoming here.
I think this is so cool that you can go back and forth between Michigan steelhead and salmon and Islamorada snook and tarpon. I mean, you're in a pretty interesting and unique position there, Cap.
Yep. It's funny. You got to get back into the swing of things, but it all comes back to you pretty quick.
Now, how long will you stay down there and fish into the spring?
I'm staying until the end of May.
Oh, end of May.
Yep.
So you don't fish the rivers up here in the spring? You go right to the big lake?
I'm not, but my captain that works for me, yes, he'll be running the jet boat starting February 1st and running it through, mid-April, whenever the spring thing, is about done, or we're ready to put the big boats in, I guess.
How many boats are you guys running these days?
We got the jet boat and then the 2 big lake boats.
And you've been doing this, well, I mean, you're still a young guy, but you've been doing it since you were a real young guy, aren't you?
Yep. Oh, yeah. Yep. Tournament fished and weekend fished. And then once I turned 21, I got my captain's license, and I've been running a boat ever since.
So is this, I mean, to some people, Lance, you're living the dream. You're a guy that a lot of us would just love to be in your position. But I know that there's a lot of work in there and there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that people don't see.
Oh, yeah, you should see the mess I'm in today. I'm changing all the bunks out on the trailer, changing the jack stand, changing the straps. This is for the boat down here in Florida. But the saltwater day off, I've already got X amount of dollars in the bolts and boards and carpet, and it's just like, back in Michigan, how many times have you ever changed your carpet on your bunk? Not very often.
Never. Is that because of the saltwater?
Yeah, the saltwater is just an angry beast. But I think that's why the fish are so mean, too.
Lance, listen, always a pleasure. I'm so glad that I caught you during a blow day. It sounds like a lot of fun. I got some buddies coming down to fish with you, and sooner or later, I promise you, I'm going to be joining them. Good fishing to you, and we'll talk again.
All right, thanks, Mike. We'll talk to you.
All right, look forward to it. Lance Keene, Captain Lance Keene of Steelhead Hunter Charters and Trout Scout. SteelheadHunterCharters.com, SteelheadHunterCharters.com. I got a little story to tell here, but I'll wait till after the break. And then also after the break, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar. I do not have any idea what recipe he's got this week. I don't know if it's fish or game or small game or venison or what, but I can guarantee you it'll be a good one coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Marquette on WDMJ 1320 AM. Staying in the UP. ESPN 1400 WKNW out of Sault Ste. Marie. And now heading downstate to Saginaw. WSGW AM and FM 790 AM 100.5 FM. I'm in the studios of WSGW right now. By the way, for SGW listeners, the show is moving from Sunday mornings till Saturday mornings. Keep an ear on WSGW. They'll be talking more about that. Charlie's looking at me like, no, maybe not. Maybe it is, maybe it ain't. I'm just going by what I was told. Anyway, you can hear me on the weekend on WSGW AM and FM. And by the way, I said I'm here in the studios with Charlie Rood, who's doing a wonderful job as always. And It's nice that it warmed up enough. As I look out the window and look into the parking lot, we have a crowd coming back. They're gathering. When it was so cold, people would not show up. They didn't want to come out of their house. But now, for a couple days, it's a little warmer, and they're anxiously awaiting for Charlie to leave the studio. I see a couple signs. I think they're positive signs, Charlie. I don't think they're bad signs. But anyway, Charlie's doing a great job, and I do appreciate it. I want to go back to a conversation with Lance Keene. I first met Lance. He bought that business, Trout Scout, from a guy named Gary Shaffer. Now, I met Gary when I used to hang around Manistee. In particular, we used to do our, there was a few years there. We worked out of Insta-Launch Campground, and we did a fishing outing that later became known as the Sloppy Joe Memorial. And the reason was Joe Maltese was a friend of mine, and he's a guy I worked with very closely on the radio show when I was back with a different distribution network, a different network. And he used to give fishing report from around the state. And he and I were on the air one time shooting the breeze and said, we ought to get together, get our listeners together and have a fishing outing. And so we did for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and we based it out of Insta-Launch. And the second or third year that we did this thing, Joe had a massive heart attack, and we lost him. So then we started to call it the Sloppy Joe Memorial. On a positive note, on a happier note, I got to meet some really nice and wonderful people through that, and one of them was Gary Shaffer. I had fished with Gary before. He was a big water charter captain. But he had a work opportunity come up that he needed to spend more time on. I won't call it a real job or a different job, right? So he was able to sell this operation, Trout Scout Charters, to this young guy named Lance Keene. I didn't know Lance from Adam. I was down at the Novi fishing show one year, and Gary says, "Hey, I want to introduce you to Lance. He's the guy taking over my operation." And I didn't give it a second thought. He said, "From now on," he said, "why don't you call Lance when you want to do radio conversations about fishing and have Lance do it?" I'm thinking, Gary, why are you doing this to me? Why are you sticking me with this young guy? I don't know this guy. I don't know what he knows. Maybe he doesn't know anything. And now look at Lance Keene. So a little inside baseball there. Oh, what else is going on here? Speaking of Lances, as soon as we get done here with this week's radio show, we're going to record this month's Angler Quest podcast, and another Lance Valentine of Walleye 101, not Walleye 101, Teachin' Fishin', teachinfishin.com is going to join us for that. A reminder, too, about our Wednesday night lives that we do. Every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, I do this on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and LinkedIn. Haven't figured out a way to do it on Instagram yet. I do a Wednesday night live program where it's an informal setting. It's an interactive setting where you and I, I'm on camera. I can't see you, but I can see your comments, and I can react directly to them. I can respond directly to them. We have a lot of fun. We have some great guests, some very interesting topics. And coming up in March here, the first Wednesday in March, it is our plan, it is our intent to take the Wednesday Night Lives back on the road, and we will be at the Forward Corporation Lumberjack Restaurant in West Branch. It'll be a wonderful meal. I suspect I can round up a few giveaways and some prizes and such, and we'll see who we can't bring in to join us. So put that on your calendar. Also on your calendar, our Trinity Monitor Wild Game Dinner from my church. That is Saturday, March 5th. Tickets are not quite on sale yet, but they will be. Among the things we're going to auction off would be a walleye fishing trip with me on Saginaw Bay, a Saginaw River cruise with my wife Denise and I. A very popular event. I'll let you know as that gets closer. And I want to save you some money, too. PrimalTreestands.com. First place to go. PrimalTreestands.com. Use the promo code Avery, and you can save money on, I think, most everything on the website, maybe even including the new gear for 2022. Go to MichiganBrand.net, the website of MichiganBrand.meets. Use the promo code Mike21 for a big discount there. And go to MUCC.org. all caps, and save 25% on your membership into MUCC. Looking forward to turkey season. In the meantime, I did win the Pure Michigan Hunt. They haven't drawn it yet, but I did win it. I'm just telling you that right now. I'm putting it out there. Positive vibes to the universe. And won't you be surprised when I do? And believe me, nobody will be more surprised than me. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. You can try the social media. Like I've got my business Facebook page up right now, and I got people talking to me there. But I like email. I'm old-fashioned. Can you believe that? They call email old school. Well, that's what I like. Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Dave Minar coming up. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. Listen, I want to follow up on something. I was just giving a bit of good news here. I told you I'm in the studios of WSGW right now, and I was saying that I thought the show was going to move from Sunday mornings on WSGW AM and FM 790 AM 100.5 FM. I thought it was moving from Sunday to Saturday. Well, I just got some great news. It's going to air both days. Saturday morning from 6 till 9, and Sunday mornings from 9 till noon. So thank you, folks at WSGW. I appreciate that very, very much. Also appreciate the fact that wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar joins me each week here on the show. And I bet, let me think here. I'm trying to see. I just have this feeling he's with us on the phone line once again. David?
Michael.
Yes, you are. See, I knew I was right.
Ta-da!
How you doing? How you doing, my friend?
And dandy.
Did you make it through that cold snap?
Yeah, it was quite brutal and windy, and it just wasn't fun to be outside. I walked the dog, and she was ready to come in. Me too.
Yeah, I did my morning walks. I did them on the treadmill downstairs, which I don't like to do, but it's like, you know what? I'm not going to go out and walk in sub-zero temps at 5 o'clock in the morning either. So. Oh,
man, it felt like my face was frozen when we walked into the wind, and she kept sniffing and sneezing and she said, let's get back.
That's enough of that.
Went back in. We took a short walk.
As we're recording the show right now, there's a break in the weather. It's nice and warm. It's supposed to get cold again, but I was thinking, I'm not a huge fan of winter anymore, but when I was a kid and really did love winter, one of the things I liked the most, Dave, was tromping through the woods and jumping on brush piles and stuff looking for rabbits.
Yeah. Me too.
How about a rabbit recipe?
I just happen to have one, now that you mention it.
Isn't that funny how that works out?
Okay, I've got, a lot of people make chicken and rice and like that. We got a rabbit recipe with rice. It's a baked one, and it is a real hearty dish, and I've got the recipe here for quite a large batch, so you can invite the whole family over and have a rabbit dinner when you get some. It's going to take a couple of 2 to 3 rabbits, depending on how big they are. You want to cut them up in 8 to 10 pieces. So you got a couple of front legs and a couple of pieces of hind leg, and you cut them in half. They'll cook a lot faster, the loin. And so you need 2 cups of a wild rice blend and around a tablespoon and a half or so of better than bouillon, because you want to build this flavor up because of the rice. A medium to large onion diced up fine, 2 stalks of celery, 2 stalks of carrots, same thing, kind of a medium to fine dice. And one, if you like the flavor of leeks, use it. If not, it's no big deal. The onion is going to compensate for this. 1 large pepper, nice red one, diced fine, or if you want a yellow one or a green one, whatever flavor you like. I like the sweetness of the red one, though. About a tablespoon of Italian spice, 2 or 3 cloves of garlic diced up real fine. And you're going to need, for every cup of rice, you're going to need 2 cups of water. So it's a 2-to-1 ratio. And so if you're going to make a smaller batch, by all means, cut that back down to 2-to-1. Couple of tablespoons of fresh butter. And if you like fresh black pepper or cayenne to give this a little zing to it, and a little flour and some olive oil. What I like to do is either sprinkle some cayenne pepper on the meat before we flour it, or grate fresh black pepper. I know you'd prefer the fresh black.
You know that.
Yeah. So after you do that, dredge it in flour, brown the pieces off in a hot pan with a medium amount of oil. You don't want too little because the flour might burn. So you want to do it in small batches and watch it constantly. Place the meat in a casserole or a larger pan, whatever you're going to do in the oven. Wipe the pan out with a paper towel or just rinse it a little bit, and add some olive oil, and then saute the vegetables and spices in the butter, the 2 to 3 tablespoons of butter over a low heat, couple minutes, break all that flavor loose. Then you want to add the rice and stir it well, and you want to coat each grain with the butter. So that's going to make it non-sticky. And you want to use like Uncle Ben's or a converted rice or a parboiled rice. If you use the other kind of rice that's not been parboiled, it's going to be very, very sticky. So whatever you prefer, I guess. So put the water in it, bring it up to a boil, and then if you didn't put the cayenne pepper on the meat, do it now. Return the meat to the rice, taste it. Make sure that this is the flavor you're looking for. And so I would cover this with foil or a lid if you have some kind of a larger casserole that has a lid. And I bake it an hour and a half to taste it and see if the meat's falling off the bone. If not, check it every 15 minutes after that. And I tell you what, this is a great recipe.
It sounds wonderful. Listen, Dave, it sounds wonderful. I love rabbit. I'm also looking forward to seeing you Thursday night as we come down with the elders, and you and I can chat in person then.
Oh, so again on 20th, right?
20th, you got it.
All right, thank you, Michael.
Wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show, as are you, because if you weren't listening, there'd be no reason for me to do this. And then what would I do with my time? The website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And I'll talk to you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.